I attend ICABA events as often as possible because the connections and the networking opportunities are immeasurable.
Welcome to ICABA Business at Breakfast. It's my pleasure right now to introduce someone who has joined the ICABA team recently, and we are just, again, really excited to have her to be a part. And her name is Vicki Frazier-Williams. She is our market president for South Florida, and I am going to turn it over to Vicki.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Give yourselves a round of applause for doing what it is we are doing starting today. Also thrilled that we've got a young lady here that is going to tune us into things that some of you, especially those of you who are already tuned into the tech world much more than I am, share with us some stuff. And the more I looked into you, and I'm not going to call your name either, but I was just so impressed, not just about the tech stuff, right? Single mom. Yes. Every time you see our stuff, you see MetLife, and now you can see the man behind that who has understood the importance of us connecting and activating as we in fact are. Tunde.
One of the things I realized when I was in the hospital was technology. You know, that's what I was thinking when I was last night and thinking about coming here this morning. This is a great thing to support, and I'm appreciative for Hutch and everyone here for allowing us to sponsor. Thanks so much.
Next young man that I'm going to bring up is a managing co-shareholder right here at Greenberg Traurig. He is our host sponsor, Jarrett Davis.
Welcome, everyone. On behalf of our 160 lawyers in this office alone, and our 1,800 lawyers nationwide, we're absolutely thrilled. Technology is the future. We know this. And it's funny, I was just giving an interview to the Upstart Business Journal, which is a journal that focuses on entrepreneurship and technology, and they asked me, what's needed? I said, well, the funny thing is we have all the different components already. It's getting them to talk that's the problem. Getting the education system to talk, getting the entrepreneurs to talk, getting the service providers, lawyers, accountants, et cetera, to talk, and getting the mentors. So the key to helping any entrepreneur has always been the same, getting mentorship and access to resources, and that's why what you do with UV is so important. So we absolutely applaud it. Jerome, absolutely applaud you being the connector, because once again, you are the person bringing everyone together.
Jared just talked about how important it is for us to have the ability to do technology and to have entrepreneurs and technology folk understand how important that they can come here and get it done, right? One of the men who is at the forefront of trying to make sure that Miami has that kind of platform that we need here from a technology standpoint is our next speaker, who is Matt Hagman with the Knight Foundation.
Thank you very much, Vicki. It's such a pleasure to be here. Hutch, thank you so much for putting this together. This is really fantastic. And wait, we haven't said her. I know.
This is such a thrill to be here. So Knight Foundation, our mission is fostering informed and engaged communities. And it was about a year ago that we looked. Robert, how are you? So quick aside, so I used to work at the Miami Herald, and I was a reporter there for the better part of a decade. And Mr. Robert Beatty right here was the general counsel. And so when you had a story that needed legal vetting and you're sort of going up to the line, Mr. Beatty always had to look at it. And so he was like this guy who was like off in the corner office, and he's looking at your story and you're thinking, God, I hope this gets through so this can run. So it's a pleasure to see you. And it was about a year ago at Knight Foundation that we launched an effort focused on trying to better connect, support, strengthen this emerging community of entrepreneurs, startups, doers, makers of all kinds, with the goal of making Miami more of a place where ideas are built, where people increasingly think that Miami is a place where I have the people and the tools to build my ideas, right? And with the bet that if we can do that well, that'll lead to more community engagement, more talent retention, more sense of place and possibility. And through our grant making, we have sought to things like the Emerge Americas Conference, which Jared referred to, which we're so excited about in May, things like the Lab Miami in Wynwood, where people can gather, where Brian Brackeen, an entrepreneur you're going to hear from in just a minute, works day in and day out, and trying to do things like Endeavor, right, where you provide mentorship and provide access to funding, and in particular fund things like the New Me Accelerator. It was a year ago when we were just getting started that when we spoke with the person whose name you hear shortly, who had an accelerator, still has an accelerator in San Francisco, that had come up with this idea of a 3-day pop-up, where they'd come to your city and then with this condensed period would gather entrepreneurs, counsel them, provide them mentorship, and then give them an opportunity to share their idea in front of an audience, right? And it was, and this person, unnamed as yet, said, you know, this, we haven't done it in any city yet, but we'd love to come to Miami and try it. So, let's do it. And they knocked it out of the park. It was awesome. And so I can't tell you how excited we are to have New Me and this very honored guest back here in Miami. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Have you ever had it where nobody said name? They're all alluding to you, and we don't know your name. Well, this next young man, recently, Hutch and I went to a seminar, the State of Black Business in Fort Lauderdale. And there's this young man up there who I became extremely impressed, both of them. In fact, Hutch, lean on to see if you can get to talk to him. Of course I can get to talk to him. He is already in his own right a powerful young man. So I'm going to introduce you to him and then let him introduce this as yet unnamed superstar. Right? No, whisper. Okay. Brian Brackeen, who is going to introduce our speaker.
My name is Brian Brackeen. I'm the CEO of Kairos. We're a facial recognition firm based here in Miami, at the lab in Miami. We do facial recognition for enterprises, so basically any company anywhere can use facial recognition in their app, service, all through our service. So we're very excited to be here, and I'm very excited to be introducing said person that no one knows and cannot say her name, which will make the introduction even harder, by the way. This person, I'm supposed to describe a little bit of her background in just a few minutes, and that's extremely difficult. I mean, you look at the things she's done professionally, from everything from, you know, going to the White House multiple times for events and even to ask questions, from starting a brand, Black Web 2.0, that grew into a large number of users, large number of folks working for and reading the brand, graduating, you know, nearly at the top of her class from SCAD, and then starting New Me Accelerator. It's really just kind of an idea and a dream in a really small house in San Francisco. Those of you that saw the CNN special on her, it was over an hour long. And growing that into what we all know today is just a powerhouse that changes people's lives. And even while she was doing all those things, you know, mother of 3 and really, really amazing folks. So somebody that, you know, I'm very, very proud to know. I like to tell people that we got into New Me going 40 miles an hour, and we left it going 400 miles an hour. So this person, who is unnamed, has really changed my life from, you know, immeasurably. And I owe nearly everything to this person. So with that, I can say the name. With that, here's Angela Benton.
Great.
Thanks, Brian. You always have the nicest things to say. I'm so honored to be here this morning, and Jerome, where are you at? He stepped out. No, I thought he was coming back in. Anyway, I was so excited to be connected to Jerome through Matt Hagman, and it was really a simple email that said, hey, there's this great organization, I want to connect you to Jerome, they have a breakfast meeting, and all of that, how many weeks ago? I mean, you guys move so fast in Miami, which I love. A part of us working with Matt Knight Foundation last year, even launching the whole pop-up accelerator idea, literally took shape in I believe 6 weeks. I mean, this was literally just an idea that has turned into, you know, a 13-city tour in 2013. So I'm loving the pace at which you guys move here, which a lot of other folks moved the same speed as you guys. I'm not going to talk too much about my background, and I want to say a couple of remarks really about entrepreneurship and the power of the network. And then what I'd like to do is open it up to questions to all of you guys, because I don't know about you, but I've been to a lot of talks, and it's always so much more beneficial when you can ask really direct questions. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to do that this morning. So part of what's interesting about launching New Me Accelerator in San Francisco is it is a technology accelerator, but really it's so much more than that. And most technology accelerators, they're generally 12 weeks, and you get a certain amount of funding to launch your idea. And what's unique about New Me is not only do we focus on underrepresented minorities, so specifically African Americans, Latinos, and women, we're really focused on trying to get more people who aren't represented represented. But we don't actually make financial investments into the companies that come into New Me. And that's different from the model that actually is kind of proven right now. So we're literally trying to disrupt the accelerator model at the same time. And so what I mean by we don't make financial investments, we make other investments in terms of resources, time, and connections is actually a really big piece of it. So once you go through the accelerator for 12 weeks and you're kind of accelerated, your knowledge is accelerated on kind of the game and how things work, we connect you with investors, we connect you with mentors, and we connect you with advisors. And what is interesting about that is people have already raised money based off that. And so it really disrupts the idea that you have to make a financial investment in someone for them to be accelerated. And so what I mean by that is, we started, it seems like 3 months ago, but it was a little over 2 years ago. And we've accelerated, at least in the 12-week program, over 33 companies, over 150 around the country through the pop-ups that we're doing. And they've raised $7.9 million on their own. And that's like, I don't come from a financial services background, at all. And so it's really a testament to the power of the network. And really, I think that can be replicated in cities around the country. And it's a matter of taking the right people who have the right passion, the right desire, and plugging them into the networks that can help them. And just even by testament of being in this room, I'm so glad Jerome decided to pass the mic around so that we could hear everybody else that's in this room. There's a lot of people that are entrepreneurs here. There's a lot of people that are in business and leadership positions here. A lot of times we think of that as two different things. And it's not really two different things. They actually work together a lot. What we're seeing is a lot of early stage investors, angel investors, are actually coming from executives that are in corporate America. So really finding a way to plug into the networks that exist where you live. Not only from an entrepreneurship standpoint, like we tend to think about, okay, I need a mentor and I want to be in the startup scene and it has to be in that box. It really goes above and beyond just the startup scene. I'm going to open it up to questions. Does anybody have any questions in here? I heard a lot of startups, so I can talk about specific startup stuff or specific stuff around diversity and technology.
Well, I just wonder what you think government's role is in all of this wonderful happenings in technology.
There are really great programs like the Small Business Association, but my personal belief is, again, it's not just capital, but it's still access to other resources. There are tons of financing resources that the government actually has. The problem is it's a lot of hurdles to kind of get to the cash, which is hard. I was talking to someone at the National Science Foundation. I mean, they have tons of money. I think you can get, I think it's $750,000 for just an idea. They're not looking for you to actually have anything built yet. And so we're working with them to try to get people to apply to the process and everything. So I think it's a matter of understanding what opportunities exist, and so getting awareness out about it, but then on government's part, kind of adapting to startups a little bit and not having such a long, drawn-out process to actually get to where you need to go.
I want to get your comment on the current state of investment in minority companies. Any awareness you can bring to us about groups that are focused on funding minority companies?
Sure. One of the things that has emerged since we started NUME is really this development of investors that are not necessarily focused on minorities specifically, but are open to people of different backgrounds. And so totally agree with you in terms of the industry not really being a meritocracy, and particularly when you are looking for a certain type of pedigree, and that means people that go to a certain school or already have access to a certain network. And generally those networks and those schools are Ivy League, which is great, but if you just look at the demographic of folks that attend Ivy League, it actually is not representative of the whole country or the whole world. So you're automatically limiting yourself when you're saying we need someone from these with this specific pedigree. Folks like Mitch Kapoor are really great supporters of the technology industry, and a legend in his own right. Mitch founded Lotus Notes or Lotus, the company, years ago, and is just someone that's hugely down to earth, genuine, really wants to see the industry diversified, and has a fund. One of the things that I'm noticing, particularly around the investors that tend to work with NUME a lot, is there is a social kind of component to it. And that's not to say that they're only interested in investing in social enterprises, but they have an awareness around their responsibility to support people that don't fall into certain demographics. And Jalea Ventures, they're actually based in New York, is a great example of that. And Keisha, who her background is very impressive, is in the process of raising a $30 million fund on her own, but had previously worked as a syndicate with a guy in New York called Josh Millman, who's a billionaire. And basically what they wanted to do was they got a whole bunch of billionaires together in New York specifically to impact social enterprises and people who are building things for minorities and really minorities who are launching businesses. So that's all that they even want to invest in. So there's all these different layers between Josh and Akeisha and a new me, and even me going around and doing talks similar to this that really fit into the whole ecosystem of actually getting people funded and actually moving the ball forward.
Before I ask my question, I just wanted to also piggyback off of the last question. I think having represented a lot of these angels, VCs, private equity guys, what they're looking for ultimately is validators. I mean, that's why what you're seeing is when they go with the IVs, et cetera, because I absolutely agree that phenomenon occurs, they're using those as proxies, however imperfect, for quality, et cetera, et cetera. So I think our role as folks who have entree with those funders is to provide that extra validation that for whatever reason you couldn't get from the fact that you didn't go to an Ivy League school or you didn't have this pedigree or you come from a cultural background that's just underrepresented. So
totally.
I think that's ultimately the game we're playing here, which is why what you're doing, what Jerome does, is so vital. In terms of my question for you, Angela, it's sort of a corollary to the question I was asked by the woman with the SBA. On the commercial banking side, my friends at BB&T will smile over there. And this is a dialogue Matt and I have just started. It's almost frustrating how a lot of times people will always look to the equity community for money. And they forget there's this entire community of commercial banks out there. Now, the reason they don't look at them is because typically most underwriting criteria will exclude startups, just by nature of the risk-averse nature of commercial banking. But for instance, several years ago, as you can imagine, South Florida is prone to natural disasters. A shocker, right? So every now and then a hurricane comes through, we survive it, et cetera. But one of the items, and this may be the interplay of government and banking, one that we years ago came up with a list of underwriting criteria for disasters. So that, let's say when Hurricane Wilma walloped downtown, a lot of the small businesses were impacted. There's an organization here for economic development called the Beacon Council. Beacon came up with a series of underwriting criteria that said to the banks, I remember Citi participated, a couple others, while you wouldn't normally loan to this small business, in this very specific situation of a disaster or a hurricane, we have come up with underwriting criteria that we think will still protect your balance sheet, but still allow you to make those loans. Why can't we port that same idea over to an entrepreneurship model? That says, while we normally wouldn't make the loan to you because you're not a Burger King, you're not, a Siemens, because you're a startup and we think you're vital to this community, let's come up with special underwriting criteria for startups. And just try it as a pilot program. Earmark a couple of million off your balance sheet and make those loans.
Totally agree. I think we should work on that. I really, I agree with it. Particularly, I'm not sure about the local banks here, but there's a bank in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley Bank, and a lot of startups use them. And
I'm doing a deal with it right now.
oh, you are? They're great in terms of the terms that they offer startups. And while they generally work with folks that are funded by venture capital firms, it kind of all goes back to the relationship. It's really a relationship business that they're building because they have these relationships with the VC. So before a deal even closes, they'll actually front the startup operating capital based on, okay, well, we know XYZ venture capital firm, we know this deal is going to close, we have a relationship with them, we're going to go ahead and put the money in the bank so that they can survive. You know what I mean? So I think that's a great suggestion. I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day, particularly as it relates to minority communities, because we don't really have a friends and family round. You know what I mean? We're already kind of coming from behind everyone else. We don't have anyone that we can kind of tap into and say, hey, I have this idea, how do I launch this kind of company? But not only that, I need $10,000, $20,000 to actually do it. And I think that's a perfect way for a bank to kind of fill that role in minority communities.
Could you talk a little bit about, for that business person, an entrepreneur, as a bootstrapper, they put it together, it's starting to work, so they're feeling pretty good, their friends probably say, hey, you're great, but now they want to go to the next level. And going to the next level is just that, going to the next level, and it takes a next level of expertise and knowledge, and maybe they think they have it, but there's some more that you don't know, and you kind of talk to how that process could be, if you will, impacted by being involved in the pop-up accelerator and so on.
Sure. I think that's the great thing about the pop-up accelerators is you get access to that information that you don't know. And it's that old saying, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And so a lot of the founders that we end up working with come in to New Me with, they have their stuff together, or at least they think they do. And we have this, we end up having to unlearn them, basically, every 12 weeks. And so they come in with, a certain swagger and mojo. Maybe they're the top company in their local community. Maybe they're not. But at the end of the day, we end up having to unlearn a lot of things that people are learning on their own. And some of that is just coming into the program only thinking about money and thinking that I just need to have an idea and then connect me to investors and that's it. My idea is so great or so awesome that someone's going to be willing just to invest in that, and that's just not how it works. You have to actually have a product, and I think particularly in the tech startup space, the idea of bootstrapping is so underrated. It's actually really that first step. So you need, that guidance to actually get something built, put something out there into the wild and see how it acts, iterate on it, pivot on it, similar to, what we were talking about vividly. And you need all of those early learnings to even be able to be ready to take anybody's money. You know what I mean? Because if you just have an idea, what's going to happen is you're really just going to blow the money. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen to your actual idea or product once it's in the wild. Does that answer your question?
And I guess the last part is about the art of raising capital. Running a business is one thing, but the art of raising capital we talked about last night is a little bit of a different thing. If you could speak to that a little bit.
It's a totally different beast, and it can take up all of your time. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's frustrating because it takes you away from doing the thing that you love, which is running the business and working on the product. Which is also why the more data that you have, the more information that you have about your customers, how much they pay, how long they are your customers before they kind of trickle up. All of that is more information to help you get through that whole fundraising process.
Are you seeing areas of like innovation in our community that we're not tapping into? Because I know a lot of people are doing the whole social media things, and a lot of the same kind of startups you're starting to see. So are you seeing in the Black community specifically areas that we're not tapping into from a technology standpoint?
What I'm seeing around the country, and I think minority communities have a great advantage actually on the general tech landscape, is to build ideas for problems that are helping solve issues that are in our community. And I think one of the biggest examples of this, and I told a story last night at Matt's dinner, was Pigeon Lee, who's originally from South Florida, is building or has built a platform that connects society to people that are incarcerated, be it through digital photos, taking something that's digital on your phone and now moving it to an analog world, or voice over IP services. And so this is something that disproportionately impacts minority communities. But what was fascinating about the whole idea of being able to work with him and working with him raising funding is I literally was able to see when he was pitching to investors in Silicon Valley, they hadn't been pitched this before at all. It wasn't on their radar. And he had product, he had people using it, he had people paying him already. They were blown away. And he closed it really quickly before that, after New Me. I mean, he closed like in July, he finished in New Me in May. And so I think that was the biggest takeaway, is try to solve problems that no one else is doing. When you start being, I like to think that it's just not authentic if you just are trying to do Me Too stuff. You're going to end up burning out. Doing a startup is really hard. It's a lot of work, and it's 24/7. And so doing something that you're really passionate about, that you really love, that's really helping change people's lives, impacting communities, I mean, that's the stuff that you need to kind of get you through the hard times when you don't have money, Not only that, those are things that differentiate you from other people. That's ultimately going to be able to get you the funding, because, Joe Schmo on Sand Hill Road has never heard about somebody building a platform that's connecting the whole incarceration, like, micro economy. You know what I mean? He just hasn't been pitched that before. He literally was able to see it on their face, like, let's talk some more. So, the rest is history. So the first part of your question is, I believe you just are an entrepreneur if you're an entrepreneur. And I believe that now, I think more than ever, particularly being able to work with entrepreneurs, you can kind of tell during the 12-week process who's really an entrepreneur and who's not. You know what I mean? That's not to say that I don't think it can be learned, because I think that can be learned through life circumstances. And so a lot of people, maybe they aren't a natural entrepreneur, but they go through something in their lives that develops that quality in them, and then therefore will make them more successful in the long term. So that's my answer to that. The second part was about Black dollars circulating through our community. I think it is obviously, like, having New Me, I think it's important to support our own community, but I do think we need to make sure that we're diversifying our efforts. And so, what was interesting when I started New Me is, it started out, we were just helping African Americans, we were on Black in America, we reached out to all kinds of folks, people regardless of race, that we just thought were smart and that we wanted to learn from. And it was funny because a lot of people thought that we only wanted to learn from other Black people, which is just kind of stupid, you know what I mean? We just want the information. So I think sometimes we can limit ourselves to only doing specific stuff in the Black arena, and only wanting to network with a certain kind of person, and only wanting to do business with a certain kind of person. And I think at the end of the day, it ends up hurting us, because we then don't have information from experiences that other people have gone through. I was talking to somebody else actually about banking, and he was telling me something. I was like, what? You can do that? I mean, you know, it's something that I didn't even know, you know, so, but I would not have known that if I was staying in my own, you know, little circle. So I think that's important. And so I think it's a balance of needing to support your own community, but also being open to going out and making connections and getting information outside of something that might be most familiar to someone.
For the younger generations that are coming up after us who maybe not have the same resources or you know, kind of that go-getter attitude to kind of go out and find that information, what do you feel is the best platform to kind of reach those people? If academia is kind of not not geared towards technology or changing their bureaucratic systems, how do you reach those individuals who have these fantastic ideas but feel, you know, college is the only avenue?
Sure, I love that question, particularly because it's really frustrating to hear a lot of people talk about what needs to be different to diversify the technology industry, and they always go back to, well, we need more people with computer science degrees and STEM education, and it's like, that's part of it, but that's not the whole solution. And at the end of the day, I heard that there's a lot of publishers in here. A lot of you guys have publishing platforms. I actually think the media, and that's the key to actually get to these people. Reach them where they're already doing. I mean, one of the great things that I love about this organization, I was reading the mission is, it's about connections, but it's also about creating this lifestyle that you want. And so that's something that's really important. People get caught up in raising money, and when we do the one-on-one coaching, the first thing I tend to ask folks that I work with is, what kind of life do you want? Do you want to build a $100 million business, or do you want to build $1 million business? That's okay, it's up to you. But depending on what your personal goals are, that's gonna set your plan, you know, your track, where you need to go. $1 million business is great for many people. It can still impact communities around us. You're still hiring people. You get a lot of jobs out of $1 million business, you know what I mean? So that's that. But then the lifestyle that you're able to create, you know, around that $1 million business, $5 million business, $100 million business, that's what we're all attracted to. Thank you for all of your great questions and making me not give a whole full-blown speech. Is so much more valuable, even for me, to hear you guys' questions and be able to answer them. Perfect.
Thank you.
A couple of things, then we're going to let you do some more networking, because I know that's really what you're looking to do, and the hour's getting on. So I'm going to go real quickly. I want to thank our sponsors that we just heard from BB&T, also South Florida Times. Robert Beatty was here earlier and had to leave, and also Socially Buzz, Andre K., Light Foundation, Matt Hagman, also FIU. I'd like to thank our advisory board members who are here today, Dr. Hutchinson and Andrew McNeil, who's behind the camera, and David Muir, our photographer, who's doing a great job. We appreciate it. I want to thank Tracy for being here and always doing a great job of keeping us straight, and Vicki Williams, and I want to thank you for coming out. We will be sending out a survey, and we ask that you will please respond to that survey and let us know what you think. It helps us to get better at what we do to be able to serve you more. And just let me know by a round of applause if you enjoyed yourself today.
The event was amazing, having Angela Benton as a keynote speaker and really kind of breathing life into the technology space here, but then also really pinpointing the diversity issue and shining light on that, on the importance of that, and really getting our community involved in technology. So we're not just consumers of technology, but we're moving towards being creators of technology to make our community better. And it was an amazing morning.
What can I say about the event? It was awesome, right? A lot of great knowledge, a lot of great talent. I think there's a lot of great potential entrepreneurs that's going to do great things that was presented today. And we're very excited about the Miami ecosystem of technology, startups and technology companies. It's going to make a difference and really validate what we're doing in Miami as a tech scene. So it was good. Thanks.
It's great to be around like-minded individuals talking about business and entrepreneurship and teaching people how to think outside the box and, you know, not to be another Me Too company, to be different. And it was a great event. I met a lot of great people that I hope to build relationships with, and I hope to see them again soon.
It's always an honor and a pleasure to attend ICABA events. I always learn a lot, and I look forward to attending more.
This event was just an eye-opener when it comes to funding sources and the ability to connect funding sources to needy business startups in South Florida. So I appreciate the opportunity to attend, and I appreciate Jerome for always finding the best talent that's possible.
I attended the ICABA breakfast for the first time and found the discussion very relevant and pertinent to what minority businesses are thinking about or ought to be thinking about today. I thought the presentation was lively and the questions were direct and very just very honest, as were the responses. So I had a great time and look forward to coming back.
And the whole idea, what came out of this conference that we had in 2010 was there was this disconnect to Silicon Valley. And so part of the reason why we launched the program was to disrupt that. And so one of the reasons why our program is set up as a residential program, which means folks aren't just coming to San Francisco living on their own for 12 weeks. They're living together in a house that we have, and they're working together out of a workspace that we have. And so it's super intensive and super immersive. And as such, we try to be somewhat selective on who we invite to come to NUMMI in San Francisco. So what we used to do was accept applications. And that was a pretty good process. I mean, everyone kind of accepts applications, so we were really kind of just doing the industry standard. What I noticed was it wasn't as efficient for us, and we had a highly detailed process. It was 9 steps, and it included you filling out an application and doing a video, and us doing reference checks, and us doing phone calls, and then having an investor advisory board actually go through each one of them to help us make better decisions. And I'm not sure it was as effective as it could be, particularly because if you're only reaching people that are aware of your business, so they have to even know that New Me exists to even apply. And that's part of the problem. So we got a range of applicants. So we got people building like board games. We had one guy who was building a chess game, and then we had somebody who was, doing facial recognition. And so the range was just so wide, it was really hard for us to get only 8 people, because we could only take 8 people in San Francisco. And so that just became harder. So it was great when we were able to launch the pop-up in Miami last year. And I started to think at that time, this is actually a really good way to get people to come to San Francisco, because for a couple of reasons. Now we have a better understanding of what business that they're actually building. We're working with them for 3 days, and part of being in New Me, it's super intensive. We want to make sure that we're not only asking people to be in New Me that have great businesses that we believe in, but really fit into this bigger culture of what we're trying to build. And so it's not just about, oh, this guy's building XYZ business, it's going to be $1 billion business. At the end of the day, we also want to work with people that we like. You know what I mean? And so some of the early advice that I got was to set up a set of core values. So we actually have 10 core values that we use to hire people on our team, but we also use that to actually recruit startups, and we want to make sure that they fit into our set of core values. And the reason why that's important is because they don't always stay in San Francisco. Many of them go back to where they came from, and they become an extension of our brand and what we're about. We want to make sure that these folks aren't just building good businesses, that they're going to give back to their local communities, and they really believe in what we believe in. So that's a little bit of how we recruit and how we make sure folks are good fits to come to San Francisco. For pop-ups, it's wider. So pop-ups are a way for us to cast a much wider net, really to see what's out there, to get a better understanding of the business landscape in local communities, but for us to get a better understanding of the entrepreneurial makeup of each local community. And so what that means is we're doing one-on-ones, which is, trust me, very hard to scale at a local level. We're doing one-on-one 50-minute sessions with every person that registers. And what's great about that is it's very resourceful for the entrepreneur, because they're not reading a blog on what to do, and they're really getting personal advice and it's specific to their situation. So that's something that's invaluable, and that's also something that's kind of replacing this idea of having this network that's in your family that you can kind of tap into already. So we're really trying to take over, I guess, what's not there from that. So that's that. Then we have a 2-day workshop, a 2-night workshop, and basically what that is, Anthony Hogan, our pitch coach, he works with all of our startups in San Francisco and does a phenomenal job. He's hilarious, and he gets on the startups, he gets on their nerves while he's coaching them, but it's like night and day. And he comes in for 2 hours on day 1 and 2 hours on day 2, and he works on really 2 things. The first day is putting together your actual pitch deck, so the format that you're going to use at a high level for demo day on the 3rd night. All of the founders only get 2 minutes to pitch. And the reason why we do 2 minutes is because literally we're forcing them to get down to the nuts and bolts of what it is you're actually doing. And I have this problem myself as an entrepreneur, and when people ask me what is New Me, it's so hard for me to pinpoint, because you have this huge vision and you're like, what part of the vision should I share with them? And so I'm just like, every entrepreneur. And so he works with them to get it down to 2 minutes. What is your business? How do you plan to make money? How are you going to acquire users? How is this going to be something that's scalable? And then he works with them on actually how to present it. And so part of that is how you articulate specific words. So Anthony, he'll say something, he'll do something that's actually really funny, and I hope some of you are registrants and will be able to work with him. But he's this little guy and has like a really, really high-pitched voice, and part of what he talks about is how that actually held him back in life for a while, and he was doing some other kind of work before, and then he realized, I'm actually a good speaker. And so really he started to embrace the things that made him different, and that's a part of what New Me is about. And so we're taking entrepreneurs where they are, what you think might be something that might not get you funding or might not get you where you need to go. We're basically teaching you how to flip that and use that to your advantage. So finally, the third night, demo day, 2 minutes to kind of pitch your idea to a room full of the local startup community. We bring investors with us from our network in Silicon Valley, and then we ask local investors to participate. And what they win is $45,000 of products and services and a slot in the next New Me Accelerator. And so when I say products and services, that's everything from rack space, cloud hosting to all kinds of stuff. It might be Google AdWords to actually use to market your business. Whatever you need, those little things that actually really matter in the big scheme of things, and that a lot of startups just don't have the money to do, we give you access to that, so you can kind of get on the road and do a good job building your business.